let's talk.
Hello, and good morning. This is Let's Talk, getting to the root causes of important issues of the day. This on-air community forum believes your voice matters and welcomes all thoughts and views without judgment. Please join today's conversation by calling 415-663-8492 or tweet us. No, don't tweet us because it's absurd. And also, KWMR brought to you by the Clothing Optional Center for Homeless Teens here in Point Reyes Station.
He's making up things like that.
No, that's totally right.
That was flawlessly read, if I might say so.
Well, so this is Let's Talk. My name is Charles Schultz. I'm here, as always, with the lovely Shelley Rugg.
Oh, thank you, Charles.
And Paul Raffel.
And
a very
fabulous
special
guest.
MK.
The one and only MK.
Thank you for joining us, MK.
You're very welcome. It's lovely to be here.
There you go. The topic is marriage, and I've been querying people I know about marriage for the last day and sort of get their opinions on it. But we want to hear your opinion of marriage.
How's it going out there?
Exactly.
How's that marriage thing going for you?
Is it working for you? 415-663-8492.
Yes, and when you call in, you'll hear a funny little noise as I put you in the system. Hang on until you hear me say you're on the air, and then turn down your radio. Give us any name, and that could be the name of your neighbor next door, your enemy next door. And please, keep the language clean. Imagine you're talking to your wife at a very special moment, or your husband at a very special moment, and you want them to agree with you. No swearing, please.
Well, that's not going to work with marriage at all. But you three have had an experience that I have not had. All three of you have been married.
Oh.
Yes.
Yes.
What do you think,
this
MK?
Is true.
What do I think of marriage?
We all have that same look in our eyes.
Yeah, they're all just like, yes, we have.
Well, I think it's a state of mind. It should be a state of mind, because I've been married more than once.
Oh.
And
that Brazilian playboy, what was his name? Carvalho.
Carvalho,
yeah.
He rode off on a Carvalho.
But it was never going to work. I told you at the time.
Yeah, and I think that the legal aspects of marriage really need to be examined, because love is love, and commitment is commitment, and I don't think you need to have a paper to tell you that.
So when you were married, either time, was it religious ceremony, or was it 3 times? Was it civil, just
the
do it
first
at
one
town
was
hall?
Cecil B. DeMille meets New England.
Oh, fabulous.
The second one was at somebody's house by a judge, and the third time was in City Hall by
There
a
you
judge.
go.
And the fourth time was in prison.
And right after the third ceremony, the judge, who was rather strange, took me and my newlywed husband and put us in a jail cell for 10 minutes.
Or
I give you a taste.
And then let us out.
Well, quickly,
Somewhat jarring.
the famous character,
really
character, Judge Roy Bean, used to perform weddings down there in Texas, and he would say to the newlyweds what is normally said when you're condemning someone to death, and may God have mercy on your souls.
Yes, well, that's appropriate.
Well,
I think it should be a lot easier to get divorced and a lot harder to get married. Because in love, it's just not smart.
Right.
It's fun and it's the best feeling in the world,
Yeah.
but it's not smart.
It's all about chemicals and
Yeah.
endorphins
Yes,
and all that
panting
wonderful
and
stuff.
raging.
State sanctioned, though. I mean, this is
Well,
the thing.
the thing
It's a
that's
state
happening
sanction.
is this end of life stuff, where if you don't have a legal leg to stand on, you can't
That's
sit
right.
by your beloved's bedside and hold their hand while they're expiring.
right.
Really? That's not allowed? I mean, I don't get it.
It's
California, it's
well, maybe California's.
Yeah.
I don't know. Washington has a death with dignity thing,
Right.
same as Oregon, which is good. And but
so do we know. So
I
does
haven't.
California.
Do you? I haven't gotten to the point yet where I've sat by some dying bedsides, but they were not. And I was related.
Well, I think the law should be
related.
changed so that you can sit at the bedside of your dying enemies, which may include former spouses. And I don't think
They're
think
so
it's
weak
fair.
they can't do anything.
Well, exactly, and I don't
you
think
can
it's
tickle 'em.
I don't think
my
it's fair
goodness.
that you're excluded from their dying moments for people you truly hate.
Good heavens.
Please.
I don't hate anybody.
Well, exactly.
Speak for yourself.
I used
dear.
to, but he died.
Oh, well.
Were you married to this
Ba-dum-bum.
person?
I was married to his son.
Married to his son. It was the father.
Yes.
Yeah. I've dated a lot of people whose fathers were ding dongs, so I can appreciate that.
And Shelley, you were married?
Yes.
Would you like to have the right to be at his bedside when he's dying?
Well, we're not married anymore.
Only for exes. This is my new law.
But I think more than even beyond, I mean, that's really important to be able to be with somebody that you love that's going through something really challenging and difficult, and to not be able to do that is really painful for both parties, I would say.
Yeah.
More painful for the person who's dying.
Not necessarily.
They get
Right,
morphine. You
thank
don't get
you.
morphine. Okay, so not only do you get to
It
sit at the
depends
bedside,
on
you get
where
morphine.
the pain is, right? Is the pain in your heart? Okay. But there's also other legal issues. My father just died, and I need to be able to handle his affairs. And so if you have a partner and you're not legally tied to them, then you're not really able to handle their affairs.
If there's no will, or if there's no
Or
what
trust.
do they call it?
Power of attorney.
Yeah.
Right.
So you didn't have the opportunity to, and this is not about marriage, but this is about a loved one. But you didn't have the opportunity to make those plans before your father became ill.
Oh no, it's all good with my dad, and Dad and I weren't married. Just to make sure that's clear.
Reassuring.
Yes. I can't wait to have power of attorney over my mother. I'm going to have her committed immediately.
No, no, Dad's affairs were very well in order, and so that's not an issue. But
So was your wedding ceremony, was it religious or
Cecil B.
civic,
DeMille
or-
meets
it
Wasp.
was half and half. This is
Landia?
kind of a fun thing. I was raised in the Unitarian Church, and the minister at the time was
too.
actually an atheist.
Fabulous. I love the Unitarian Church.
And then my groom's grandfather was a Christian minister. And so we actually had both of these men stand up and say things.
Yeah.
Because, I wanted my familiar guy who, talked about things the way he did. And at the same time, we wanted to honor his grandfather. And so we gave him some time up there as well. So it was a little bit of both.
A little bit of both.
Yeah.
Oh, your wedding, Paul?
Weddings, I mean, really,
well.
weddings are kind of about bringing families together, and that can cause a lot of problems. And but it also provides opportunities, so to be able to welcome in, some different perspectives and ways of doing things.
Or if you haven't had a panic attack in a while, it'll also help you, So your wedding, Paul, since you're asking.
Wedding arrangements. My wedding was an incredible party. It was just fabulous. The City Hall in Honolulu.
Wow.
And it was a great time was had by all. It was very simple. And, of course, we'd already been together for 7 years. We were already committed to each other, but I needed a green card, so we got married. So it was all very simple, very cut and dried. Yes, it's now sanctioned by the state, and I am
ICE,
a
if you're listening,
legally married person. And,
if ICE is listening, we can still deport him.
Oh.
Come down to the station.
well,
his visa marriage is a sham.
Those were the days when the immigration service was actually kind of human. It was pretty nice. They said, "Oh, you overstayed your visa? You have to go back to England and apply for a new visa there. Apply for your green card at the embassy in London." I said, "Oh, do I have to?" And she said, "Yes, you really do." And I go, oh, okay.
What marriage?
But anyway, so that was it was a legal thing that needed to be done so I could stay in the country with my wife, with my partner.
663-8492.
Well, Give us memories of your marriages and what you feel about the institution of marriage, having done it or not done it or shied away from it or whatever. 663-8492.
I just propose to everybody I meet now. Heidi, Gregory, if you're listening, my number is 663-9518. Just leave a message. We can get married. Carrie says it's not going to happen, but I think Carrie is just a pessimist, just to let you know.
I was ridiculously young when I got married the first time.
You know, it's legal in Massachusetts at 12 with parental consent.
Well, I was 19.
Oh, okay, close.
But not much more than 12, as far as development as a human being.
Why did you get married?
Because we looked great walking past mirrors together. We did. We were beautiful and young and golden and marvelous, and I wanted to get out of there. And he was a very interesting person. And
sounds great.
But, it wasn't really.
But he went to St. Paul's, and that's a bad sign right off the bat.
Yes, he did go to St. Paul's.
It's a bad sign.
How did you know that?
I just made it up.
What wasn't great?
At least you didn't go to Groton.
What went wrong?
He went to, no, my dad went to Groton.
There's trouble written all over this family.
Oh, no kidding. What were you asking?
What made it go downhill for you?
I wasn't in any position to accept the responsibility of being a partner in anything.
And you still haven't taken responsibility for Amanda, which I think is wrong.
So you were not you were not cohabiting before?
No. But my father, the old surgeon, said that everyone should live together before they get married, which I thought was very wise of him.
Yes.
But you didn't do that?
No, but we saw a lot of each other.
I see.
Yeah.
It
was also during the Vietnam War, so if you got married, you didn't get called. So 2 days after he graduated from Harvard, we got married, and then as soon as it was, if you're married and have a child.
Did that really inform what you're doing? Do you think if that hadn't been the case?
I think I was in a let's have kids mode, and so I did, but it worked out well.
Yeah,
and yeah.
So, what would you think you wouldn't have gotten married to do it again? Or?
You know, I wish that I had the thoughts. Yeah, I wish that I'd had the wisdom to know that living together and moving to New York and living in the village and you know being an artist and developing a personality, but I had to wait till I was 25 and moved from the East Coast to the West Coast, where nobody knew my family and nobody knew me to establish, a personality.
You had to escape the
Didn't
gravity.
help me in the marriage department, but
but you know,
as a person, it did.
I think it's easy for us to kind of reflect back and think, oh, if only I had known, things, I would have made a different choice. But at the same time, you probably learned a whole lot going through that stuff. I
think I was still fixated on myself. At that point, I wasn't thinking about anybody else until I had a baby. And then that's, was the most natural thing in the world as far as I was concerned. And I loved it. I loved being pregnant and I loved having a baby and blah, blah, blah. And it took emphasis off of me. It was a big help.
So it was a good reason to get married because it gave status to the children. They weren't
I guess I never even thought of that either.
Right.
I don't know. It's not...
Yeah. I mean, I think that's what I did because
Were you really young when you got married?
No, I was 28. We had been together for many years, not thinking about getting married, but when we thought about starting a family, then I felt like, well, I guess we should get married just for legal reasons for the kids so that we're all able to, whatever comes up legally, we can do it.
Well, 663-8492, call us, tell us. But this is the really difficult part, and please do not feel pressured in any way to answer this, which is, what went wrong?
Oh, well, I think...
I started to grow up.
Yeah.
He didn't?
He's a poet.
Even though I didn't get married till I was 28, our relationship started when I was the same age as MK. And... So, yeah, we were both growing up, and then I went to college, and my partner didn't.
What does that mean? I mean, what
means a
affected
lot.
it?
That means that I went through a lot of growth and change, and he stayed the same.
That this experience of education, new ideas, that wasn't happening for him, but it was happening for you.
Right. And, there were differences, a lot of differences in our personality, but I think the biggest issue for us was communication, and that we could have a conversation, discuss an issue, and he thought because he heard the words that we had communicated, but when I could tell that he wasn't getting my meaning by what he reflected back to me, I would say, yes, but that's not what I mean. So it was really challenging to
Just developing in different levels.
yeah,
different
and
speeds.
and then he had a lot of fears about trying new things and going out, into the world. He'd
Good
be
heavens.
afraid of getting lost or whatever or I
this
don't
is-
know the people. Like he would say, I don't know anyone there. It's like, well, you have to go to meet them and then you'll get to know them. So,
Fear.
he had a lot of fear. So, in my processing of how to be in this marriage with this person, I came to the decision that if I wanted to go out dancing, I'd go with someone else.
Oh.
If I wanted to go, whatever I needed to do in my
This is
life,
chipping away at the.
Other
and it really
companions.
was. It was another part of what grew us further apart. Was that I started developing friendships and relationships and interactions with the community, and I was like really engaged with my life, and he was going to a job every day, which was great, supporting the family and all that,
Yeah.
and every day coming home and saying, I hate my job.
Oh, great.
And every day I say, what would you like to do instead?
Yeah.
Let's explore.
Yeah.
What you're talking about is the economy, too. I mean, the economy defines our lives, how we survive, how we get what we need to survive. I mean, but often all of our dissatisfaction with our engagement with this economy gets displaced and put on our private relationships. So, for example, if you go and yell at your boss and really vent, you get fired. If you yell at your pretend friends, they don't talk to you anymore. But the person that you're in a relationship with, you can yell at, because where are they going to go?
Well, luckily he didn't yell at me,
But
Charles.
maybe did you yell at him? That's what
didn't
I'm
yell
talking-
at him.
I'm talking about the abuser Shelley
It was
Rugg here on
more
KWMR.
about frustration on my part. I was so
Yeah.
frustrated with hearing the same complaints every day and seeing somebody not changing their life for the better.
Men are notoriously difficult to get through to, I have to say.
Not me.
Let me just say that although Stephen Hurwitz is not in the studio, he is here in virtual space. He asks all very important questions. Is there an important difference between living together and marriage? Marriage entails a ritual declaration of fidelity to one's extended community, while living together usually just happens. Does it matter to children, especially? He said.
Well, I see now the destination wedding, this horrible thing. Like in 2016, I guess it was, maybe it was last year, I was offered to fly for free to a wedding in France and to a wedding in Cape Town in South Africa. I was like, no, I can get drunk in this time zone. I'm fine, thanks. But that weird thing where we used to have communities, and some people...
Well, wait, but why South Africa? It's because she lives in South Africa.
No.
or he lives in
The woman was South African, but the two people lived in New York City. I don't know. So, but to me, we used to have communities, and for fundraising purposes, some people still pretend we have a community. But the idea of marriage was to stand up in front of all the people you see all day, every day, and say, "This is my relationship to this other person,"
And
then-
promise.
well, it's reinforced by the fact
Yeah.
that if you've made I know that MK saw me say that I'm going to behave this way and not that way, and then when I see you walking down the street every day, because we live in a community, in a sense, it's a reminder that you stood up in front of everybody and
Your
said that's what
tribe,
you do.
yeah.
Well, it's trying to hold together something which is really difficult. I mean, anybody who's had children, and been in a relationship like that, how hard it is to kind of hold that together.
Yeah, especially when your husband develops a crack problem.
Oh,
It was just a
he really,
phase.
he
Shelley.
really did hate his job. Wow.
It was just a
Yeah,
phase.
To change the subject a little bit, Margaret Mead, who we all
Ooh.
knew and loved, had 5 major relationships in her life, and she called them episodes, which I think is really good, because in my first 2 marriages, I sort of grew away from the people, from the men, and became, I was becoming the person that I am still
Becoming
becoming.
the real you, yeah.
And that I thought was a really good way to look at it. I mean, in this culture, I think divorce is a failure, and it's very difficult. It's sort of like, well, you screwed that up. You can't.
Well, that's
you
that's a hangover from the old days when you had made a vow to God that
Right.
you would stay together forever.
in sickness and in
And
health
then
and all the
suddenly you
rest
go,
of that
yeah,
stuff.
maybe
Right.
not.
I
we
mean,
need a divorce, so they made it very difficult. But it's easier now, isn't it?
A lot of it has to do with the state, too, and I hate to sound like
Oh, yeah. Well,
Michel Foucault or his
marriage.
followers at Berkeley.
Marriage and divorce is a state-controlled thing.
But, for peasants, it really wasn't until, say, the last 150 years. If you were in England, you didn't have an official marriage in the Church of England. The nobility and the sort of upper echelons of the society would get married in the church, and then you had to have an act of parliament to dissolve the marriage,
Right.
which made it extremely difficult. But the poor would have rituals of marriage. They would also have rituals of divorce, which is very interesting. This is going to sound extraordinarily crude and vulgar, but they would have what was called, if you wanted to divorce, this is, again, the thing that I think is sort of semi-positive about this is that it was based on female choice. If a woman who was a peasant in England 200 years ago wanted to divorce, and she said, I don't want to be with this guy, I want to be with that guy, that was allowed, and the way it was formalized was with a so-called wife auction, in which her current husband would lead her into the sort of square, the village green, and there would be a mock auction in which the guy she had chosen to be with would be the winning bidder, preordained, and then she would go off with her new husband.
Like a cow. That's horrible.
It is horrible, and that's why I said it was vulgar, but I'm saying that the interesting thing about it is, in all of that, as vulgar as that is, it was her choice.
It was the woman's choice.
I don't want to be with this guy, I want to be with that guy. It wasn't like an actual
so a little
auction.
public
what if
humiliation is.
What if you
goes
didn't
by.
Well,
want
I'm
to
a
be
Catholic.
with?
I enjoy it. What can I say?
What if you didn't want to be with your husband with no intention of going to another guy?
There you go. I was just going to ask.
Well,
that
this is a real.
Then you're a witch.
Well, no, it's
Oh,
there
and you
was
might-
there was a concept certainly in the Middle Ages of what was called, or it is called today, holy anorexia, and what it was is an extreme devotion to the church and the reduction of your diet, so you would stop menstruating, right? So the anorexia part of the holy anorexia. But what that would mean is that you would not have to be forced to submit to the demands of marriage, childbirth, etc. You could separate. Now, it's a pretty crude and kind of awful thing, but
So they'd starve themselves so they didn't have to get married?
they would only, so they claimed, receive the Eucharist, only receive the sort of a wafer, at church. That's a pretty awful situation, but that was a way women could escape marriage and childbirth. That's something they didn't want to participate in. I think there's also, in America, there's a tradition of...
That's commitment.
It is commitment, but there's secular nuns in American history who are, like our amazing school teachers of a century ago. I don't know if there are any left, but who chose not to get married and chose their profession, and chose their work, their vocation. So I don't think it has to be a horrible thing, but in the Middle Ages it wasn't great.
Give us a call, 1-415-663-8492. Tell us your views on marriage and not marriage, or living together, and divorce, and all related issues. Murray Seward, the wonderful Murray Seward, sent us an email. Health and marriage. Marriage and health are closely related. Married people experience lower morbidity and mortality across such diverse health threats as cancer, heart attacks, and surgery. Most research on marriage and health has focused on heterosexual couples. More work is needed to clarify the health effects on same-sex marriage. The marriage and health issue is admittedly complex. Some researchers believe that married people are healthier because healthier people are more likely to get married. I'm not an expert, but I think the issue of health, physical and mental, is worth discussing. Perhaps some marriage experts listening into your show will have some facts about whether or not marriage improves health or degrades it.
Well, the world has changed. The context has changed. I got to tell you, I encounter a lot of women in their 30s, who would really love to be married, in all the senses of that word. But the economy's changed. If I was born in 1947, like my mother and my father, I would already own a house. I would already be married. I would already have children. So there's a real class component. The rich are still getting married and having those kids, and the very poor are. But there's this sort of middle in which people feel cut off from the things.
Or they're making a choice not to get married.
Well, making a choice. I believe in free will, but often people just say this is my choice as a self-rationalization for what they're compelled to do. So, the prostitute that says, I like being a prostitute. Well, do you have any other options? Is there any other way you can make, to support yourself? If you did, would you choose the thing that you're doing, or would you make another choice? So I think people don't feel as though they can I think because they think they need a house and they need to own things and they need to have this wealth and prosperity that existed a couple of generations ago.
People who are not married, who are just living together, own things, have houses, co-signers on everything. So what is it about that health and welfare thing about marriage? What is it that causes it? It's the actual ceremony? What is the magic in the ceremony that makes it different from if you're just living together? Why would you be healthier?
That's a good question.
I think it correlates with class. It's like saying eating 5 fruits and vegetables a day will make you more healthy. But if you look into those studies, what you see is people who are wealthy have access to all of these healthy choices. People who are poor do not. So when you say it makes you live longer, well, maybe class is what makes you live longer. Maybe it's the reason why there are 9,000-year-old wasps wandering around Massachusetts that need to be stamped out with the newspaper.
I would think maybe the study isn't complete, that it's not so much about the certificate of marriage as it is about the committed relationship, that you're in a I'm not married right now, but I'm in a committed relationship, and I was thinking about this this morning, and what is that song, Nature Boy, just to love and be loved in return. Knowing that your partner is willing to not only give you love but receive love from you that you want to freely give is a beautiful thing, and it can help you to feel more grounded, more confident, safe.
But would a ceremony improve that?
I don't know.
Make it even better?
I think there's a question about the ceremony that it can sometimes go the other way. That it can affect how we think about
feel like
things.
A trap.
Right. That some, and I'm not going to say all men, but some men suddenly, we're married now.
Go make me a sandwich. I'm the man, you're the woman.
Exactly.
That
it can change our idea about the relationship. And I think probably even more so with the younger, less mature people who have development to still go through, and they have an idea about what it means to be married that interferes with the kind of connection that people really want to have.
But there's so many products of broken homes.
But even homes that are together.
I wonder if that's making a difference in marriage rates.
Like MK, I'm saying, even to some extent, it's the way in which we replicate the relationships we've seen. It's not the marriage itself, but it sounds like you had some issues with your former husband's father. And so, that are...
for me,
that's a whole other show.
I had to watch
MK's first marriage. We have a caller. Sorry.
My mother's parents, they got married in the 30s. Yeah. They had the cigarette in one hand, the cocktail in the other. My grandfather got the excellent job as a judge, and my grandmother was a society woman, and everything looked perfect. But, at the ends of their lives, they pretty much hated each other.
Man.
And
it's a waste of time.
To watch two people be so miserable kind of makes you not want to go there.
Now, we do have two callers on the line, on both lines here.
Are they married? Maybe it's a couple.
Just let me do a quick station break, then we can do it without interrupting you. So please, both of you, hang on. This is KWMR 90.5 in Point Reyes Station. And did you know that KWMR archives all locally produced programs? These archives are available through the KWMR website. Click on Radio Archives to stream your favorite shows. And support for KWMR is provided by our listener members and by the Point Reyes Light, an independent and locally owned newspaper telling West Marin stories since 1948, featuring award-winning reporting, essays, opinions, a community events calendar, and the Sheriff's Calls. Office and newsroom open Monday through Thursday in downtown Inverness. Subscription, classifieds, calendar and advertising information, plus letter to the editor forms are available at ptreyslight.com. That's PTREYES light.com, or at 415-669-1200. Okay, callers. Both of you callers are on the air. What are your names? Let's see. How do we...
Are you a married couple calling from either side of the house? That's what I want to know.
I'm not a married couple, but I'm calling from the other side of the house.
Would you like to be married because I'm single?
No.
No.
And about our other caller.
My name is David.
Oh.
Hello, sir.
Hello.
Well, now, so what are your thoughts? David first.
David first. Oh, misogynist.
Well, I think he was first on the line.
Oh, I see.
Misogyny.
Fair.
Be damned. Let's see. First of all, a wonderful piece of wisdom that I discovered just before I got married, which was that marriage is a friendship recognized by the police.
Uh-huh.
Isn't that-
Okay, so David, are you married to a male or a female?
I'm not married at all,
Oh.
Yes.
but I have been married.
Uh-huh.
Another one with experience. How about you, Crater?
Oh, you knew it was me by my voice.
Yeah.
MK, I'm sorry I didn't recognize you earlier this morning. I was in my tizzy self.
Gotcha.
She was thinking of making me a delicious pizza, weren't you, Greta?
Well, you know, when I saw that the subject matter for today,
Whoops.
I had to listen because it's a fascinating subject. And I want to chime in and say that they say that men live longer if they're married than if they're not married. And I'm wondering, you know, what everyone thinks about that.
Well, war has something to do with it. I mean, MK was saying that one way to avoid going to Vietnam was get married and have a kid. So men go to war, and that's one of the reasons why they die younger. They also do riskier work. They, whatever.
Well,
And they
it's
smoke
also
like
more-
me.
Traditionally, more anxiety for a man's role in supporting a family, etc., and that's got to be taxed as well.
So, David, when you got married, did it improve your friendship? Did it change it in some way when the state started recognizing your friendship?
Well, it was the police who recognized it.
Oh, the police.
Yeah. It definitely felt deeper when I got married. And I still regard the day that I got married as the best, the happiest day of my life. It really was
Really, even after the breakup?
Yeah.
Okay.
It didn't change the fact of the day.
Well, I think that's very beautiful that you're able to hold on to the things that made you happy and not,
Yeah.
be consumed by bitterness. What about you, Kreta? You're married, aren't you? How dare you? What about us?
I am not, but I have been.
Uh-huh. Are they still happy memories of your weddings?
Absolutely, because I got married for a different reason, which is one of the things that I kind of wanted to bring up, and that is to help out a friend stay in the country. And I think we touched on this lightly the last time we talked.
Well, no, Paul just mentioned it earlier on the show. Clearly you weren't listening. Kreta.
What?
He was a product of a visa marriage. We could have deported him and be rid of him years ago, but he got married to stay in the
It was
country.
the other way around, Charles. I got married to him so that I could stay in his country.
Oh, well, no, we did talk about this on my show last week.
Oh, yes.
So you could stay in Holland, yes?
Right.
Well, I have a friend recently divorced who was originally, it was a visa marriage, but then there was something more substantial after that, and sadly they broke up in the end, but it started as, a visa marriage.
Well, so arranged marriages
arranged marriages
can be as deeply felt in the long run as unarranged marriages.
Here's a dark secret: they mostly work better because we have, and it's the residue of Christian ethics in Western culture, the idea of the free selection of the other. You choose to whom you will be loyal, you will have empathy, you will love, etc. And it's a beautiful ideal, but it's really difficult to make work. So the arranged marriage, like your dads know each other and they're doing a business deal, and they've seen you wander off in the bushes with each other a few times. They say, well, let's just get those two married. You're from the same culture, same place, same family, same economy, same language, all that stuff. And so arranged marriages, which is the norm in most of the world to this day, are much more stable than this Western ideal we have, which is that I just love this person because I love them, and you're from a different class and a different religion and a different this and a different that, and it's very hard.
Well, in that situation, you have to learn to work things out. You don't have a choice. And I think with free choice, you also have the free choice to live. And does that teach you how to be in a sustainable relationship of any kind?
It's very difficult because everybody is saying, says leave. Why would you deal with the strain of something that's difficult? Life is limited. The purpose of life is to have the most diverse variety of experiences you can. Why are you limiting yourself by this one person or their particular problems? So our economy, really, we say it's like, oh, it's just I want to live, be free or whatever. It's really the economy which is telling you have no commitments except for being the best consumer you can be. Oh. And so marriage is the enemy of this.
Marry once, marry twice. See which one is better.
Exactly, marry 15
marry
times.
But how do you learn to deal with things that are different than what you think then? How do you grow? How do you keep moving in the world if you always have this choice to leave whatever is difficult?
Well, you have to decide not to.
I think that sometimes leaving is a way of saving yourself when you've tried everything else and
you're right,
and it's not working.
Well, I think it's generational too,
especially in abusive relationships.
Right,
absolutely.
And a lot of people stay in abusive relationships because they can't afford.
Can't get out.
It's financial. They can't afford to live on their own, or they've been, threatened. But
brainwashed.
Yeah, brainwashed. Yeah, that's
I could say, my mother left my father. He was an insane abuser and a drug addict and all these other things. He was really, really mentally ill.
Oh my gosh, that explains so much.
Indeed. Do you have any crack? I mean, we can smoke in the the thing is, they won't let you have a cigarette in the studio, but I bet Lions will let us smoke crack. Lions, question?
Oh, stop.
She's coming in.
No.
Bring
She
that
says no.
Lion says no crack in the studio, and that's why we're getting divorced, Lions. Don't think it. I know. But I think it's generational in which I think men and women in post-war America, and we can talk about other times in history, in that period, say 1945 to 1965, they really felt compelled not only to get married, but to stay in marriages that were bad. And
well, I think a lot of that has to do with my parents' generation, because that was the Second World War generation, and those people went through a lot.
So they had some perspective on there.
But they stuck with it.
Yeah.
Most of them. I know that in my own family, nobody.
Well, but it wasn't accepted. Divorce wasn't accepted. If
Right.
you were a divorced woman, especially, you were ostracized.
My great-grandmother got divorced.
Oh. But crazy wasps get to do stuff like that. Do you know on Tuckernuck Island, you've ever been to Tuckernuck? That's where John LaFar's sort of ancestor, one of my mother's friends. She's going to a wedding on Tuckernuck this July. See you there, evil wasps from hell. They were all like Buddhists in the 1890s. They were West Marin before West Marin.
That this business of arranged marriages, that the 1950s and 60s WASP marriage, all those ladies that appear in the society section of the Sunday Times, I was in there.
You were
Yep.
Did you have a debutante? Did you come
No,
out?
because I'd gone to Europe by myself before I was 18, and my father said, "You're not having a party because you're already out."
There's the corruption then. You went to Europe.
Well, I want to say, in defense of WASPs, I only met one of these people, but Fairfield Porter and his wife, Ann Channing Porter, who I did know, and was a wonderful woman. Not only were they in the society pages at the Times as a young couple, but they both were disowned by their evil WASP families for being communists. So there's still hope for you.
That's a hopeful sign.
Exactly. I think that you can still do it.
My point was that we were sort of groomed to grow up, look good, know how to cook a bourguignon, and marry some doctor or lawyer, and live in a house in the suburbs, and have a swimming pool, and send your kids to Choate, and da-da-da-da-da. And so, and I tried to do that.
Did you send Amanda to Rosemary Hall? Is that what I'm hearing?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, but don't you think that was, in that time, that was considered to be the path of most families?
Absolutely.
I think it's just it's deeply alienated. I mean, to me, it's
It was such a waste of good years.
well, political.
Has it changed?
Yes,
Really?
I think so. I mean,
I think they've changed. I agree with Charles.
I think there's a huge number of women like my age and younger who, when you describe just then, which is a suburban nightmare of respectability and behaving in a certain way and all this performance, that you're like, I had to get out of this place or I was going to lose my mind. They want that. They think, what do you mean? You had a pool and a house and you had money and this and that.
Well,
and so it's weird. Weirdly, there's a nostalgia for something that you said, look, I cannot live with this.
Right.
As
And I
nice as it
couldn't.
is.
And I couldn't.
Yeah,
Well, things revert back. I mean, I was talking with someone today, and she said, it was Sarima, and she said, the 80s are coming back. Well, the attitudes come back as well.
Well, the 80s are coming back, and people are going to make money, like with printed materials, mimicking them. So yes.
Are you mean counterfeiting?
Well, I think that this is too far away from marriage. Paul Rafel needs to cut in.
Yeah.
Another point that Murray Seward made. While it's true, it's about the success rate of marriage. While it's true about half the people who get married end up divorcing, consider other human fields such as business. I believe more than 90% of new businesses fail. If that's true, then marriage as a human enterprise might be viewed as having a surprisingly high success rate. Or think of the arts. The head of Disney once said that out of 20 movies the company produced each year, only 10% were successful. That's a way lower success rate than marriages. There you go.
Well, I think marriage is a funny thing.
Look at it. Yeah.
I had this experience. I was with an ex-girlfriend of mine, and we were with a married couple, friends of mine down in Los Angeles, and the topic of marriage came up. And in my mind, at that moment, with that particular woman, I was thinking, I'd stay with this woman for the rest of my life. She's great. But when marriage came up, I was like, I'm not getting married. Are you crazy? Because I would think of marriage, I think probably a lot of people think of it as being
monogamous.
Well, that wasn't my thought. Osho is speaking here. Chill out, Rajneesh. But they think of it as constraint.
Trapped.
Trapped. So I was but I deeply offended that woman and that couple because they were married.
And restraint.
Say that again, sorry.
What's the difference between monogamous and constraint?
Well, I think this is the thing is that love is specific, and I know
I'm a serial monogamist. I don't feel restrained or constrained.
No, not at all. This is the thing. I think
some people do. When Charles said when he was dating this girl, and she was great, and he could foresee life with her, but when the marriage issue came up, he said, "No way."
Well, but that wasn't.
Yeah, but consider the home that he's told us he comes from.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I was like, "Where's the crack in the marriage? When do I get the crack?" I just think in that case, the point I was trying to make is that that person was hurt by that. When I was thinking in my mind, I really love this person, I'd be with them forever, but they were thinking marriage is important. And
so what was it?
Married.
So in that moment, you said, "Oh, I
marriage."
Yeah. Why?
I think for the same reason is that I think that all of the things that we idealize have been defamed mostly because of the rise of consumer capitalism, and that's too long a story, but it's an important one to discuss and create it. We can talk after this. 663-9518 for Charles's personal line. Talk to you soon. Is that what we call love and friendship and community? All of these words represent ideals that we still have. We still feel that those are good things that we want. But they've been so degraded by the way in which we're enslaved by the economy that we have, and so for instance, you get married because this is the person you want to be with, but you both have to go to jobs and spend almost your whole waking life with other people. So you get married, but you don't want to be. When I moved to Marshall, I lived with.
Not true of everyone.
Not true of everyone, but you can say that about it.
Certainly not true in my life, and may I say, I came from a very stable marriage. My mother and father were together for however long.
Yeah, well, Sally says you're very clingy, so we'll talk about that later.
A wonderful example. They were great parents, and my dad was a drone for Her Majesty, and my mother was a stay-at-home mum. That was the classic example.
But
right?
That's what mine was too.
I had a great family life too. It's something that I grew up with that I wanted to emulate, but unfortunately, it doesn't always happen that way. So I make allowances.
To me, people always think about this as being the individual sort of personalities or choices. I think it's historical. It has something to do with the Cold War, but I can't talk about it either. What I would say is when I moved to Marshall, I met Paul Fenn and Julia Peters, and they were two people that did ultimately get married. They've been together over 30 years. By the way, she wore a black dress for a wedding, which was at the Longshoremen's Hall in Oakland, and was attended by Jerry Brown and Michael Dukakis, who just didn't want to talk to each other because they both wanted the same job and neither of them got it. So they got together and they lived together with their two children and were in contact all day, every day. It's not that they didn't have private activities or separate activities. They certainly did. But to me, it was an example of something I'd never encountered growing up.
Yeah.
Marriage was, technically, but, there's a reason why you have an affair with your secretary. It's because you spend all day with your secretary. You don't spend all day with your wife. And kids, well, you send them off to schools. You don't see them or know them, and they don't know you. And so when I saw these people living together and working together and educating their children and living with their children and dealing with each other with a huge amount of conflict, because it's very difficult to be together with somebody like that, but dealing with the conflict and not letting conflict rise to the level of abuse, but still allowing it to happen. I was totally amazed. I thought, I want to be like that.
Yeah.
I
Well,
think
there
it
you
depends
go.
on the situation and the individual. I don't
course.
think that I could get along with my partner if I saw him all day long and did everything with him.
It would be very...
I'm glad that we have separate lives in that respect, and we come together then and share what's happened during the day.
But then, would a wedding ceremony change that? That wouldn't make you...
I don't think so. I mean, we've been together almost 30 years.
Yeah.
And we had one separation, but it was because we were going in different directions, but we came back together again.
Is this
So
crack?
You
Is this
call
crack?
each other. You call each other partners.
Nothing to do with crack, Charles.
I mean, if you're free this afternoon, anyways.
So you call each other partners. It's always kind of awkward, isn't it?
Companion?
You say my wife,
I don't think
my
so, because
partner,
there's
my
a time when I say
my lover,
or he says
significant-
my wife, because it's generally understood that we don't really want to stray anywhere else. We found our committed
That's
person.
what I mean by a state of mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's marriage.
Right.
I lived with my third husband for a year before we got married. And we got married and got put in jail and got out of jail on the same day. And
Great ceremony.
yeah, it was wonderful. And it was great, but it
And-
made a difference.
And how were your divorces? That's because
Oh,
we do have a we do have a.
Well, I was in Hawaii trying to get divorced over the telephone.
Oh, nice.
The real one of the words you can't say on the radio, lawyer in Bellevue, Washington, who did her best to make it as difficult and expensive as possible.
That
Well,
is
that's their
true.
job, yeah.
And I was very, very, very sad because I didn't want to get divorced.
Do you think that there was any other way?
No.
Do you have any regrets about any of your divorces? Do you think you could have...
I'll just call them learning experiences.
Learning.
Sure,
Right,
sure I
right.
have regrets.
But I mean,
Are you still there?
things could have come out differently, maybe. No.
No.
Yeah, no, fair enough.
I didn't do my homework.
Well, so we had we also had an email from Tom Yarish.
Oh, dear.
What could be more festive than a dissolution? Why not celebrate the liberation? Often thought there might be a career for divorce photographers. Divorce
it
cake.
does happen.
My D-wife, D-mate, D-husband, D-lover, divorce registry, what do guests bring? Bridesmaids, best man, divorce reception, divorced in the name of God. Ever hear of a marriage attorney? That's good.
There you go.
Bitter marriage, divorce made in heaven. We had to divorce for the sake of the kids. What would Jesus do? There you go. Thank you, Tom. And,
Jesus notoriously single, Jesus.
caller, you
Oh, I don't know
are
about that.
on the air. What's your name, please?
You're calling, asking who I am?
Yes.
Steven.
I'm here driving, so I'm against the law.
Uh-oh.
How many lines do you have in your car?
I don't know.
In an ambulance, apparently.
Hold on. Is that you?
What on earth?
It's Gail also.
Oh, it's Gail also. Gail, a wonderful name.
We're married.
Gail also.
What's
What?
ringing?
Yeah, what is ringing? What is going on here?
Oh, it stopped.
Okay, well, we're driving, obviously. All right. Well, listen. Here we are.
Yeah.
What I want to suggest is what I'm hearing is really a lot of people who are speaking with inexperience. You know,
I hear
being
one.
married is one thing. Reading about it and talking about it is a different thing entirely.
Well, that would be Charles, yes.
Well, there we go. I'm
exactly.
getting from all sides. But if anybody wants to marry me, call 663-8317, the special marriage hotline.
I'd like to know what
I'll take a shower.
Successful marriage, rather than everybody's talking about how hard, how liberating it is to break up. There are a lot of people out there that have successful marriages, and why are marriages successful?
Yeah, but Stephen and Gail, can you think of an example of a successful marriage? You can. So it was a joke.
Gail and I have one, but I think that marriage requires renewal. I don't think you get married and it's that way for the rest of your life. I think you have to constantly renew the marriage. That's what keeps it going, is that renewal, making those commitments over and over again.
Lovely.
Well, you know-
but is there a ceremony that does that, or do you just
Renewal.
you just have you just do it every month? Like Donna and I, we used to say, "How are we doing?" I think we're doing okay. Okay, then.
Well, Abraham Simmons has his rules for marriage, but I'll let Stephen speak before I give
Well,
Abe's.
come on. Nobody said that it isn't work. Any relationship requires effort. Communication. And communication. Marriage is the same way.
Well,
Exactly.
To me, it's also about having a witness to your life, somebody who really deeply over time knows you and can bear witness, so to speak, to who you are and what you're doing. I mean, for me, you have a really good friend, and they tell you you're being an idiot. What are you doing, Charles? What's that? But we have all these superficial things in which, our romantic relationships are supposed to be uniformly happy. Our friendships
Superficial
are supposed to be,
is the key word.
Yeah. But I think it's really common, Whereas, like,
It's a superficial culture.
Oh, extremely, yeah. I definitely agree.
So there it is.
But
So there it is.
something marriage is a married couple create their own little environment against the world. They're together in a way.
I think luck has something to do with it too.
Well, I think it's a health of the community as well. Like two people against the world is an ideal that we have, but if you don't have a group of people around you who are supporting that relationship, it becomes pretty difficult, I think.
Well, what do you think? Do you think there are more marriages that stay together or more marriages that break up?
Oh, there's more that break up.
Statistically.
Yeah, statistically. Yeah.
That's the fact.
It's over half
You
of
don't
them.
hear about the good ones.
I think that sometimes.
In the States, or is that in other countries?
Well, but here's a question.
Certainly in the U.S. and in Europe, elsewhere, as
It's illegal.
Charles was saying, it's illegal. Yeah, right. You'll be stoned to death. The woman will be. In the West, it's over 50%. Sure.
But here's a great question for you, Paul Raffel, here on KWMR. And you're somebody who's self-described, even on this show today, very, very committed. And I've observed how committed you are in relationships and very loyal. I see how much pleasure it gives you to give pleasure to your partner. I actually haven't witnessed that. No, but I mean, if you go out of if you go out, I mean, you like to go out of your way to put a smile on the face of the person that you love, and you're very, very committed to them. But you, for instance, would not get married. Why is that? And Mark Laveau has agreed to marry. Actually, that was a great idea. Mark Laveau will marry you.
Well, here's a scoop for everybody. I am not completely averse to it. Donna and I were averse to it because
for political reasons.
We'd both done it, and we were done with it. But if my partner now, if it were really make or break, as it was with your girlfriend, I would not say we're married, because then.
Well, no, all I can say, congratulations, Sally, you wore him down. He's a shell of a man.
It's a fabulous party.
It will be, and Mark Laveau will be officiating the wedding. Why would you
Stephen,
be with this brute?
Thank you.
Stephen,
Hello.
they divorced.
Go on.
But there are a lot of successful relationships out here. I
course.
deeply admire the relationships I've observed you and Paul. I mean, I think there's lots to learn from that. And now apparently you are going to get married, so how about that?
No, well, I didn't say that.
I think,
will put up a fight, but it will not be. It would not be to the death. Let's put it that way.
Would you ever marry again, Shelley or MK?
Well, I was going to say that I think that.
What are you doing this afternoon? Oh, sorry, Sean.
Never mind.
What?
Yes, let
I've
Shelley
tried
speak,
about
please.
3 times to say something here. It's challenging.
Yes.
It's a very lively, energetic discussion. But I was going to say that I think that sometimes people go into marriage for the wrong reasons. They have a mindset about it. And it takes that...
Don't do it if you want to be rescued.
Yeah. It takes that process of going through it to discover what you really want sometimes.
Well, that in a sense a contract can solemnify an actual existing sort of consonance or agreement between two people, but it can't create that.
Right. So, for example... when I was 9 years old, my parents got divorced. And prior to them getting divorced, there was a lot of yelling and screaming and
That's good, though.
and whacking at each other, mostly my mom whacking my dad. But and so my idea about marriage was I don't want that. I don't want that kind of marriage. But I felt like I can do it better,
Yeah, sure,
right?
sure.
So when I met my husband-to-be and I saw the family he came from and the two parents who'd gotten married at 16 and stayed married all these years,
Right.
and their home was immaculate and perfect, and everything was perfect. And I said, oh, that's the guy. Because he came from that background, we're going to have a perfect marriage.
Aha.
And then,
youth.
yeah. And so,
Wasted on the young.
and so, of course, things aren't always how they look from the outside.
Right.
And when you find out, you discover the dark secrets and the behaviors and the inability to actually communicate on a deeper level.
But you were getting married to resolve a problem in your childhood, not for that person, but for what that person represented to you.
Right. I felt like I had a chance to create a marriage that would be solid and work.
But fundamentally, not about the person themselves, but about what they represent.
About the institution.
Right.
So
I think
what I'm really saying
That's
is
what I'm
you're to
saying.
blame.
That's what I'm saying, Charles, is
Yeah.
that I am to blame because of how I was thinking about it, but it couldn't be helped because I needed to go through that.
Well, I think people,
Caller, you're on the air. What's your name, please?
This is David once again.
David. We lost you
put a
before.
ring on it, Clarkson.
Yeah, okay, that should be my motto.
It should be your motto, yes.
At Point Breeze, Judelar. Well, that's not what I called to say. I just appreciated something that Stephen didn't say.
Me too.
Which was that he didn't regard. He talked about marriages as well, continuing or not continuing. But I think divorce is not a failure of marriage. I mean, maybe sometimes it is, but I think people start out with idealism and want to make something work. And over time, people change.
Yeah.
And just because they change in different directions and decide to part, that doesn't mean that the marriage was a failure. It just means they became different people than they
Thank
were
you
when
for
they
those
started.
words.
Yeah,
Well,
they learned something and they grew.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, because to me it's like Americans, certainly anybody older than myself, have been conditioned not to even think about the way the economy functions. Because to think about it, it suggests that maybe there's an alternative to it. You commies. And I think it impacts our lives in really profound ways and subverts what we want to be our most precious relationships, and it abuses them. And I think that we need to think about the larger context of any relationship and say, what are we being forced into, in terms of how we survive, and how does that relate to how we treat the people we want to love, the people we want to be closest to.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, David. We've got to go.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, people.
Thank you, everybody. Thank
All
you to our
right.
listeners. Thank you to our callers. Thank you to Shelley and MK especially, and Charles and me. And we'll be back next week with a brand new show. Bye for now.